visit to the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, kicking off the third day of his apostolic journey abroad to Turkey and to Lebanon. He is currently, of course, in Istanbul. We'll talk a little bit more about what Pope Leo is doing, what he has done and what he will do. But first of all, let me just greet all of you who are joining us. A warm welcome to those of you tuning in through our Vatican Media app or our Vatican News website, Facebook page, YouTube channel, wherever you're joining us from, welcome. And of course, an especially warm greeting goes to all of you tuning in through our various partner stations. These are EWTN Television English, Catholic Faith Network in America, Salt and Light Television, Atmadarshan Television, Shalom Well Television, and Catholic Television. It is my pleasure to be with you today, and I'll be accompanying you throughout the entirety of this event, which is taking place, as I mentioned, in the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, also known as the Blue Mosque, and Pope Leo is paying a visit to this historic and incredibly important building, described perhaps as one of the most magnificent structures of the Ottoman Empire. So we can see here that Pope Leo is being accompanied, walking through the mosque with a delegation, with people, of course, explaining perhaps the particular aspects of the building. And I will tell you just a little something about the importance of this so-called Blue Mosque. It is adorned with 21,043 turquoise ceramic tiles, which decorate its walls and its dome. And it is for this very reason, of course, that the mosque is known as the Blue Mosque. It's got a vast interior, which is crowned by a soaring ceiling lit up by 260 windows. Now, it is also worth mentioning that this visit actually takes place on a specific anniversary, and that is the anniversary of Pope Francis's visit to the very same mosque in 2014. It was on the 29th of November 2014 that Pope Francis entered the mosque barefoot and stood in silent prayer beside the Grand Mufti, repeating the gesture that Benedict XVI had made years earlier. That was in 2006, Benedict XVI's visit to Turkey. And on the 30th of November, so tomorrow, but in 2006, Benedict XVI entered the Blue Mosque and prayed quietly before the mihrab, which is the marble niche indicating the direction of Mecca, along with the city's Grand Mufti, who had invited him to share that moment of contemplation. So we can see now that Pope Leo is inside the mosque, and there is a gentleman standing beside him who appears to be explaining and kind of showing what some of the aspects and elements of the mosque are, and that gentleman is Ali Erbas. He is the head of the Diyanet and Turkey's president of religious affairs. And behind him stands the Minister of Culture and Tourism, who first greeted Pope Leo upon his arrival just 2 days ago. So the Blue Mosque is among Istanbul's most significant religious landmarks. It was built between 1609 and 1617 by Sultan Ahmed I on part of the former site of the Great Palace of Constantinople, and it was intended to become the foremost place of worship in the Ottoman Empire. For those of you who are following on a screen, you'll be able to see the beautiful images of the interior of the mosque. We just saw the stained glass windows, and of course we can see that it is adorned with lights. So just going back to the construction of the mosque, the organization of its construction was meticulously recorded in 8 volumes, which are now preserved in the Topkapi Library. It's the only mosque in the city with 6 minarets, as most have 4, and the only one that has more is the mosque at the Kaaba in Mecca, which has 7. It's also worth noting that this is the very first visit of Pope Leo to a Muslim place of worship. So just to briefly recap what Pope Leo has done so far on his first apostolic journey abroad, as I'm sure you know, he arrived in the capital Ankara on the 27th of November, where he was greeted by ministers and authorities, before then meeting with President Erdogan. And the two of them both delivered a speech, and that was to representatives of civil society, members of the diplomatic corps, and of course the country's authorities. On that same day, the Pope travelled by plane from Ankara to Istanbul, which is Turkey's largest city. Then on the following day, the Pope met with bishops, priests, deacons, consecrated persons, and with pastoral workers at Istanbul's Cathedral of the Holy Spirit, after which he visited the nursing home of the Little Sisters of the Poor. Then one of the items on his agenda that was most anticipated was the Pope's pilgrimage to Nicaea, or modern Iznik, where he participated in an ecumenical prayer service near the archaeological excavations of the ancient Basilica of Saint Neophytus. He returned on that same day to Istanbul, where he met with bishops in the apostolic delegation. And now, of course, that brings us to today, to Saturday. And here we are at the Blue Mosque, and there is currently, if you can see the aerial view of the mosque, it really is a blue mosque, and what a majestic building. The Blue Mosque is set next to the Byzantine Hippodrome and across from the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. And the Hagia Sophia is also a very important Byzantine structure and considered to be one of the world's great monuments. Its role has changed over the years. It was built as a church, a Christian church in the 6th century, between 532 and 537, under the direction of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I. And then in subsequent centuries it became a mosque, and then a museum, and most recently a mosque again. And the building reflects the changes that have played out in the region over the centuries, reflecting both inscriptions of Islam as well as mosaics of Christianity.
Yes, it came more, but something happened after 3 months.
So just reflecting on the Pope's pilgrimage yesterday to Nicaea, that event was to commemorate the 1700th anniversary of the First Ecumenical Council in the Church's history. So on the second day of his apostolic journey, the Pope was joined by around 27 other leaders of Christian churches to commemorate this anniversary. In his address, the Pope thanked Patriarch Bartholomew I, the Ecumenical Patriarch of Constantinople, for his great wisdom and foresight in calling for church leaders to celebrate the important anniversary together. And he also expressed his appreciation for the heads of churches and representatives of Christian world communions who were also attending the event. He recalled that the Council of Nicaea was held in 325, and Pope Leo said that it invites all Christians, even today, to ask ourselves who Jesus Christ is for us personally. The council was held to respond to the Alexandrian priest Aureus' claim that Jesus was only an intermediary between God and humanity, saying he was not fully divine and ignoring the reality of the incarnation. And so, reflecting on this, Pope Leo asked, "But if God did not become man, how can mortal creatures participate in his immortal life? What was at stake at Nicaea and is at stake today is our faith in the God who, in Jesus Christ, became like us to make us partakers of the divine nature." Now, reflecting on this, the Council of Nicaea, the Pope said, agreed upon the Christological confession we now call the Nicene Creed, which is professed by all Christian churches and communities. The symbol of faith, as it is known, was of, Pope Leo said, fundamental importance in the journey that Christians are making towards full communion. And so reflecting on this still, just our correspondent on the ground has given us more information about the Council of Nicaea's impact on the Church. And so just based on what he has written, I'm reading that the first ecumenical council in the history of the Church took place in 325. After some 250 years of persecution, the decision of the Emperor Constantine to legalize Christianity allowed Christians to worship in freedom throughout the Roman Empire. But, he writes, the freedom for the Church was not without controversy, as in the early years of the 4th century, an Alexandrian priest Aureus provoked a firestorm when he challenged the true divinity of Jesus Christ. For Aureus, Jesus was not fully God, but merely a creature, albeit a creature exalted to a position next to God the Father and above all others, and there was a time when he was not. So this doctrinal controversy soon swept through Christianity and threatened to divide the Church. And so in response, Constantine called together a universal synod, inviting all the bishops throughout the world. And most of them were from the Greek-speaking East, but the Latin-speaking West were represented by several bishops. And they gathered in the city of Nicaea, not far from the new imperial capital of Constantinople, which is, of course, as we know, modern-day Istanbul. And that was all to determine definitively the faith of the Church. So turning back to the images of the Blue Mosque, it looks like Pope Leo is exiting the building, and of course accompanied by the gentleman who gave him what I suppose we could call a tour of this majestic, highly important place of worship. And now the Pope is handing gifts to the gentleman that showed him around. They appear to be medallions of some sort, and one also to the gentleman who explained everything in English, translating from Turkish when necessary. And now they're making their way out. So this is the first event of this Saturday list of events. The Pope, of course, has a busy schedule for the rest of the day. Following this visit to the Blue Mosque, the Pope will hold a private meeting with leaders of the local churches and Christian communities at the Syriac Orthodox Church of Ephrem. And afterwards, in the Patriarchal Church of St. George, the Holy Father will join in prayer together with the Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I of Constantinople. And it looks like there's just a few final things being explained to the Pope, who now is outside the mosque. And now the Pope and the delegation are walking out of the structure of the mosque. It's worth noting that 99% of Turkey is Muslim, although Christianity and Judaism are also present in the country. Of course, the vast majority are Muslim and attend mosques for daily prayer. Our correspondent on the ground spoke to a Vincentian priest who serves as a superior of the Austrian community of St. George in Turkey's capital city, and he explained that the Catholics in Turkey come from a variety of backgrounds and nationalities. And he also said that the number of Turkish Catholics is growing, and expressed a great joy to see that the local church is also growing. Pope Leo has gotten back into the car, and it appears that with this the visit to the Blue Mosque is over, and that ends the first appointment of this third day of Pope Leo's apostolic journey. And I'll just take some time to thank all of you for joining us through our various Vatican Media app and social media pages, and of course to all of our partner stations: EWTN Television English, Catholic Faith Network in America, Sultan Light Television, Atmadarshan Television, Shalom World Television, and Catholic Television. So until next time, Laudetur Jesus Christus. Praise be Jesus Christ.